Okay, we are continuing our football history series. We're starting today's series of videos with a history of Coventry City Football Club, the Sky Blues. Now, we will discuss the stadium issues. Obviously, the current stadium is the Coventry Building Society Arena, formerly known as the Rico, seats 32,609, and the stadium is going to be a big discussion point later on in this video. The club itself is formed in 1883 by workers from the Singers factory. So ask your mum, ask your grandmother. If you've got a great-grandmother still, ask them about a Singer's sewing machine. They were made in Coventry. I believe they still are made in Coventry. The Singer's sewing machines, they are fantastic. Fantastic machines. My mum's got two of them. So when you were a kid and you ripped your t-shirt or you scuffed your jeans at a tear, what would happen? The sewing machine comes out. It's probably been made by Singers in Coventry. That was in 1883 from workers from the factory and the Working Men's Club. They decided to form a football club. So very similar origin story to Arsenal being called New Dial FC, where the Woolwich Arsenal Munitions Works, Coventry City, a sewing machine company. So there you go, factory workers set up the football club way back in 1883. Just highlighting the working class origins of the sport that a lot of people tend to forget about. 1898 they take the name Coventry City, so they're more inclusive of the whole city of Coventry, and the name is adopted. The year after they take the name Coventry City, they move into Highfield Road, where they play for most of their history from 1899 until 2005. Post 2005 till now, we are going to discuss that a lot. They joined the Southern League in 1908 until 1919, and then they joined the Football League in 1919. Now, they played in all four divisions of the Football League throughout their history. They've only had one spell in the top flight, but it was a very long spell in the top flight, 34 years. And the year they enter the top flight, Jimmy Hill is still your manager. He obviously will go on to other things outside of football management. After his first season managing Coventry City in the top flight, he retires from management, and then he works with the PFA, and he argues for the removal of the upper earnings cap on player wages, which at the time made logical sense economically and was the right thing to do. Now we could argue, could we have a salary cap back in? We probably need it. But Jimmy Hill, he goes on into the media, he goes on Match of the Day, becomes a big figure in the media for many, many years. And in 2011, a statue is unveiled outside the stadium for Jimmy Hill, and he's a very, very important character in the direction of not only the English game, but the global game, with what he argued for the removal of the upper wage cap for players. And what that's now led to is unintended consequences with some of the wages we see in the Premier League and the Championship and across Europe, which are ridiculous wages. So we could argue to reinstate that wage cap, please. If the ghost of Jimmy Hill can come back and undo some of the things with that wage cap, I think they would have structured player salaries a little bit better, but that's what he argued back in the late 60s. And so yes, you're in the top flight, what became the Premier League until 2001, found a member of the Premier League as well. Whilst they are a top flight club, they get their only piece of major silverware, which is obviously the FA Cup in the 1986-87 season. A fantastic moment, the high point for the club. The following year, you obviously lose to Sutton United in the 87-88 FA Cup, but in 86-87, you win the FA Cup. Since being relegated from the Premier League in 2001, Coventry have won the Football League trophy in the 2016-2017 season, and they won the League Two playoffs the following season in 2017-2018, and they won League One outright in the 2019-2020 COVID disrupted season. So it's been a long road back to the top flight. Currently, bottom of the Championship as I'm recording this video. Hopefully that isn't the case come the end of the season, but at the moment struggling at the bottom of the Championship. It just proves how difficult it can be to get back to a division you were in before, and in some cases, as we've seen, get out the non-league. In Coventry City's case, they have not been back to the top flight since 2001. They haven't even been close. And the stadium issues is a big part of the struggles Coventry City have had. They almost went out of business. So the stadium issues actually start before the Rico Arena is even opened. They've had to do stadium redesigns. Obviously, England don't get the 2006 World Cup, which is what the stadium designers were banking on. It's got a smaller capacity than what was intended, but eventually it opens in 2005. Now, they're there from 2005 to 2013. Coventry have money issues at this point as well. They are forced for one season to ground share at Six Fields with Northampton Town in 2013 to 2014. that was a very interesting arrangement. Coventry City fans were not very happy with that. I don't think Northampton towns were happy with it either, if I can remember from memory. So they're forced to ground share. They go back to the Recone in 2014 to 2019. Now Wasps have relocated from London, the rugby union side, and now they are also involved with the Shambles, that is the Ricoh Arena, and they're ground sharing for 5 years. 2019 ends. The relationship breaks down between Sisu Wasps, Sisu who are the owners, which was a shambles, Wasps and Coventry City, and so they have to ground share at St Andrews with Birmingham City, big league rivals. Now St Andrews has its own issues and is not fully open. Birmingham City have their own stadium problems. You could not make this up. And the police were scratching their heads going, why would Coventry and Birmingham cooperate with each other? This is going to be chaos when both clubs play each other in the league. So they have to ground share with Birmingham City at St Andrews, which is not. That's even less suitable than ground sharing with Northampton Town. Crikey, they tried to get them to share with Walsall, which is the wrong side of Birmingham. I cannot figure out how some of these logistical things were thought of by the Football League, the FA, the clubs themselves. Mental. And Coventry City are in serious financial difficulty at points. They moved back to the Ricoh, which has now been renamed the Coventry Building Society Arena, where Wasps now are the stadium owners, and the relationship between Wasps and Coventry is still difficult. And the issue is, Wasps have money problems now, as been reported in the mainstream media. But plans for a new stadium have been pushed down the road because there are plans in the pipeline for a possible new stadium, 10-year lease. So by 2031, 2032, that lease should expire and a new stadium should be built if planning goes ahead. So they're back at the Coventry Building Society Arena. But these stadium issues have impacted the performances of the team on the field, the club's finances, and it has been a shambles. Now, I'm not an expert on everything that's gone on since 2005, but it has been nothing short of shambolic. Sponsors have pulled out. The management of the stadium. Coventry were meant to own the stadium initially, then they had to lease the stadium, then they had money problems, then they were forced to ground share with Northampton, then they come back, then they have to go and share at St Andrews with Birmingham City, which, looking at the state of St Andrews right now and Birmingham City's problems, Birmingham City might have to ground share the Ricoh at some point. I'm not joking with that. That could be, we've scratched your back, can you scratch ours, please? Then they go back, but now Wasps have money problems. So the stadium and the teams that use it have money problems from the get-go. And as I say, there are plans in the pipeline to possibly build a new stadium and ground share with Coventry Rugby Union Club in about 10 years' time. Whether when we get to the end of the 10-year lease that's currently in place between Coventry and the stadium owners, which is now Wasps, that isn't needed, that's a different thing. But the stadium issues have definitely impacted Coventry City's ability to get back to the Premier League, financial stability, and to be a competitive side at times. They ended up in League Two at one point. They weren't certain they were going to have a stadium to go back to at one point. So this is a warning to those clubs that goes, instead of just developing the stadium in place, we'll build a new one. Look at Everton right now. If they were to get relegated from the Premier League, they could end up in a similar situation as Coventry. Look at what happened with Tottenham with the delays to the rebuild of White Hart Lane. They had to use Wembley for a period, and it cost them a lot of money. It went over budget. Whereas clubs like Liverpool and Manchester United have built in place. Arsenal, yes, they built a brand new stadium just down the road from Highbury, but it took them a long time to pay the stadium off, and so they were slightly less competitive in the league, and therefore the silverware dried up because they were financing the stadium debt to pay that off. So when you do a stadium rebuild or a stadium move, it can be, as Coventry found out, an utter shambles. Hopefully, things are on the up, although the start of this season hasn't been great. But the stadium issues have plagued this club since 2005, and actually before 2005, in the planning process for the new stadium, there were concerns. Hopefully, Coventry get back to the top flight. It's been a very, very long time without them in the top flight, and obviously they've only won the FA Cup, they never won the league. Imagine if Jimmy Hill had stayed with the club instead of going off into the PFA and then ending up in punditry. Imagine if Jimmy Hill had actually stayed with the club as manager for longer. Could they be more successful? That is the big what if. But that FA Cup run in 86-87 is the club's highest point, and since 2001 it's been a very stressful time to be a Coventry City fan, I think is the fair assessment. I work with a Coventry City fan. He's very passionate about his club, and he remembers the days of the 70s and the 80s when they had a very, very good side. And yeah, at the moment, he's a long-suffering Coventry City fan. So there we go. Thank you very much for watching. Place your thoughts in the comment section below, and I'll have some more videos for you later on today. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all very, very, very soon.